where I don't have to leave Zoom and it goes to the YouTube. We know that when I do the live YouTube streaming, there's a delay in time, right? There's going to be some delay in time, but I want to make sure that I see everyone and that is perfect. Okay. So that's number one. So what are my goals today? My goals today is to talk about cloud computing with you and to go into detail of not only what is cloud computing, but why should you care? What are the benefits of it? What are the disadvantages of cloud computing? We really have grown up with cloud computing, but I want to make sure that you understand what's happening behind it. Okay, we'll do that. We'll also talk about what's due. I'll go over that a bit, and then I'll stay afterwards. And Valerie, if you need to stay afterwards or anything, you're welcome to as well. You had some issues that we can address before. Anything else? Any comments before we begin? Okay, so let me first share what's due and make sure that everyone understands it. Okay, so I'm going to everybody sees themselves right here that we have. And if at this point I'm going to section J, I always want to go to my what's due section. And if I look at my what's due section, we know that we were supposed to last week already read about cloud computing. And then you had some additional readings on VAPI AI, which stands for Voice API, on an introduction where you were able to get a phone number and attach some prompts, and then you could have someone call you, just like in 1-800-CHAT-GPT. Okay, so this was for Monday's class last week, and for Wednesday, you need, as I talked to Anastasia, you need to do the part 2 of your upgrade to your Wix and collaborate, and then make sure when you do that, if I look at the audit assignment instructions, right, that you want to upgrade with this code, one person in your group, right? And only that person in the group should do this. Invite all your team members, and then think about your domain name. And then you have the specific instructions there. For Wednesday, what I'd like you to do is start reading artificial intelligence, of course, with the adaptive and the quizzes, and then make sure that you go to these websites. These websites are in addition to the Wiley and Wiley Plus. When I think about cloud computing, I think about major vendors. Two of the most popular major vendors one is Amazon, which they call it Amazon Web Services, that AWS, and Microsoft has a cloud service that it calls Azure. And notice here the question, what is cloud computing? What are some examples by industry? What are the benefits? What are the types of cloud computing? What are the cloud services? And what are the uses? If you think about this, Anastasia, this would make for a great open-ended question. You agree with me? You can see that, Anastasia? So let me stop sharing for a minute. And let's think about it. In the beginning, I'm in Zoom right now. You got to Zoom, Zara, how? You went to Blackboard, and how did you get to Blackboard, Zara?
You go on Google?
You went on a browser, right? And you went into Blackboard, Blackboard through the university, and through Blackboard through the university, you entered Zoom. So Zoom is what? Is Zoom cloud computing, Zara?
Yes.
Yes. So let's go around the room a little bit, and you'll realize that almost every app that you use in computing is cloud computing. What is cloud computing? One of the definitions that I can think about cloud computing is that I access that through a browser. I have to have the internet. So if I went around my room here and you had to pick, in this case, Adam Silverman, if you had to pick one app that you use that's cloud computing. Just anything that you use, probably even on a daily basis, or you use. Adam, what's one that you use?
Um, One app, just literally any app. Um,
Don't have to think much, right?
like
You wake up in the morning, and you check your phone. What do you usually look for? Which app?
um, I would probably check the weather to see if it's nice
Okay,
out.
weather, that's going to be somewhere. What else? Just check the weather, that's it.
No, I would go to my texts.
Okay.
But no, an example I would say of cloud computing would be like if I were to use Zoom, right? Is that?
Zoom is basic. How do you get to Zoom? We're now on cloud computing. You remember last week, anybody hear that Amazon or some areas was down? Amazon Web Services. Who heard about that? Raise your hand if you heard about that, right? What does that mean? It meant that they have servers. And what does that mean? Servers, hardware in different parts of the world. Amazon. They just don't have it in San Francisco or in Seattle. Amazon's headquarters are in Seattle. They just don't have it in Seattle. They have it distributed. Where was the outage? Anybody know? The outage was in Virginia. So what types of our Zoom worked, right? But others didn't work of Zoom. So they could be of aspect. I don't even know. Do we even know what vendor Amazon Zoom uses? I don't know. You don't know. They don't tell us, but they could store it on their own computers, on their own physical computers, or they can outsource it to Amazon, or they could outsource it to a number of vendors. They could say, hey, we'll pick Microsoft, we'll pick Google, we'll do a number of Oracle, IBM. Were you going to say something, Adam?
I was gonna say I like believe that its primary vendors are AWS and also Oracle. So yeah.
Oracle and also Google
Yeah.
and also Microsoft. And probably the biggest is probably uh, Amazon is the first. And does Amazon do anything besides web services? I order tons of stuff. Who orders from Amazon? Raise your hand if you've ever ordered from, right? You order. I get boxes. I hate all those boxes, right? That it seems like so wasteful. But I order a lot, right? And the whole world orders a lot from them. It's so convenient, right? Rather than me physically having to go to Home Depot or somewhere else, right, to get stuff, right? I can get it. Sometimes I can even get it the same day, right? If I really need it. And then I can, and it's lovely. I love it to return it. I go to UPS. I don't even go to Whole Foods. I go to UPS, return it. And, they scan my phone and that's it. Isn't that great? But when you think about it, what subsidiary is their most profitable, Adam? It is not us buying stuff from Amazon. It is Amazon Web Services, their cloud computing that they offer to other companies. It's amazing. Why do you think it's the most profitable? Because we really deal with it on scale, basic economies of scale. So we can scale, they can scale up, and it basically costs us little, and they can scale up. So when you think about it, who can tell me what cloud computing is? In your own words, right? You did those research. Who can tell me? Who can raise their hand? We're going to do class participation today. Who can tell me your idea of what's cloud computing? Any ideas? Who wants to start? And guess what, Luke? When I ask a question, do I allow you to look it up in this class? Luke, you can unmic yourself.
Yes, you do.
Yes. So why don't you look it up? Everybody can look it up when I call on you, right? Alicia, what is cloud computing? That you can articulate it in your own, and I'll show you that really, when we went around the class, everybody uses cloud computing, whether I'm doing Instagram, whether I'm doing TikTok, it's all really through the cloud. And what does the cloud mean? All the cloud means is I gain access to it through the internet, through a browser. So what is it? So who can tell me what cloud computing is? So what about you, Luke? Did you look it up?
Yeah. Cloud computing is the delivery of computing services like storage, processing power, databases, networking, software, and analytics over the internet or the cloud instead of through local computer or on-site servers.
Okay. So we'll break that down. Anybody else got a definition that they found on when they looked it up? How did they look it up? Through a cloud service, right? Through the internet. Who else looked it up? Tate, did you look it up? What are you supposed to look up, Tate?
Yes, I looked up cloud computing. I found
It
it said it's like renting computing resources over the internet instead of buying and maintaining your own equipment.
Okay. And who else found something else? Connor, did you find something? What was your definition you found? Do you hear me, Connor?
Sorry, I'm kind of breaking out a little bit.
Okay. Did you look up what you found as cloud computing?
Yeah, I looked it up.
Okay. What does it say?
Basically, I'll just like summarize it. Instead of like using your own computer itself, you basically use a server to access like the internet and
Okay.
do like
So
whatever
let's
you're
think.
trying to do through
Oh,
like access to a server.
that's right. So let's think about it. Everybody remember that was with me. Remember our test. Anna, you remember the test? Sandro, were you there for the test? You remember it. When we think about it, we're going to say the difference. We have cloud computing on one hand, and the other hand, we have on-premise. And if we think about on-premise, those computers, right, that we used in the lab were what, Sandro? On-premise, right? We had individual computers, and we could, if the way that lab is configured, is it could be networked in what they call a local area network, where we have that we could share information between the different computers in that room. If we had printers and we wanted to print out, let's say, your open-ended exam, you could then attach it and you could go to the printer and physically get it. That is called on-premise. You remember, Sandra, we had IT people help us in the beginning of the class. We had them help us because they were responsible for some of the software that was installed on the computer. What software was supposed to be installed on the computer? What's Respondus? You remember I asked you to download it to your laptop on yours. I wanted them to download it. What was the problem with that? Is Lily and Daniel went to the computers, right? Physically, right? Remember, Lily, you went there and physically they had to check the computers. Why in the world? They have more important things to do, right? Like have fun and study for their exams, then I have to send them to the computers because I know that some of the computers may not have the right software, it may not be installed properly. So they wrote it down, and you would think that we have a special group of people in the School of Business that their job is to take care of that hardware. Everybody with me? And their job was to do it. And what did I end up doing? Not all those computer Sandros were working properly. There were a couple of them, they said, oh, we don't know how to get this to work. We're going to have to go to central IT, which is, there's another division that takes care of all the IT of all the schools. And they were supposed to take care of it. So what's the problem with that? We need to have another staff of IT people in the School of Business, that the School of Business, their main business is not technology. You agree with me, Sandro? Their main business is to educate and to the faculty to do research, not to be in the IT maintenance business. But so that we have to hire, and a number of the students that came in are students like you, your peers. Their profession isn't even, they're not even full-time. So this is the problem. And then what did I ask you to do? In this case, Ryan, why did I ask you to bring a laptop with you? Ryan.
Me, Ryan, or is there? I know there's another one.
Ryan, you.
Bring a laptop
Why did I ask you to bring a laptop to class?
for the exam.
Uh-huh.
I thought we took it on the.
Did I ask you to bring a laptop though, just in case?
Oh, for like backup.
Backup, because why? Because maybe some of those computers wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So you had to bring a laptop and have what? Downloaded responders to.
Yeah.
That's what they call computers on premise. So going back again to what you found then for the definition, Sandro, did you look up the definition of cloud computing?
Yes.
And what did you get?
The practice of using a network of remote servers hosted on the internet to store, manage, and process data rather than a local server or a personal computer.
Right. So what did we have? It's rather than that. So read me the first few words of that.
The practice of using a network of remote servers.
Remote servers. So how do you get to the remote servers, Sandro?
Through the internet.
Through the internet. Through a browser you get to it. And what's the next part?
Hosted on the internet to store, manage, and process data.
Manage, right? Store, process, data. What else?
Rather than a local server or a personal computer.
Right. So the question becomes, most of the software and the hardware is done. So in that case, Sandro, if we were going to go into business together, and let's say we were going to do some, what is your project? What are you guys doing for your project?
It was a real estate.
Real estate. So let's say we're going to do a real estate advising company. We're going to come out and let's say we're going to be doing locations of best properties to invest in. So we're going to have to, we'll set up some AI algorithms to find us the best properties, right? Where we'll also have forecasting where prices are, or where if we want to buy some rental properties, we can do that. So if I'm going to be doing that, Sandra, we go into business together. One is I can say, we're going to have a development staff. And what we're going to do is we're going to need to buy hardware. And we're going to need to buy, you remember we talked about RAM and we talked about storage. But instead, we don't even, in the beginning, Sandra, how many clients are we going to start with? 0, right? So in this case, we're going to invest all this money and hardware, and we don't even know where we're going. And then we need more RAM. So in this case, we may say, you know what? Let's start with doing cloud computing. And then from the cloud computing, we can rent this hardware, we can rent software, or we can rent if we need to have a Windows, and then maybe we need to have Mac, and maybe we need to have Linux. we can rent that, and we can do on demand. That's what they call cloud computing versus on premise is something like the lab. There's advantages to the lab because then we can have all the students basically be together. And even if what they have is I can secure that everybody has the same hardware. So that is what they call cloud computing. So if I share my screen with you, and I have my assignments here, that I can know that if I go to my Wiley reading, right, and if I go to my cloud computing, you can see here, I have the basics of cloud computing, different types of cloud computing, the cloud computing services, the benefits, and the concerns and risks, and the big three cloud computing ventures. So if I look at the basics of cloud computing, I know when I looked at that basics of what cloud computing is, right? The key here, Sandro, that it delivers convenient on demand, meaning when Sandro, when I want to go, whenever I want to do it, I can get those services. I pay as you go because guess what? In the beginning, I want to pay as I go. I don't want to buy all these computers, and I realize that I don't even like that business. And Sandro, you can kind of say, you know what, Dr. Rush, I don't like working with you. Let's split, right? I want to do something else. I want to get a real job. So anyways, in this case, for multiple customers to share a pool of configurable computing resources. So what does that mean? Servers. What are servers? Servers then are computers, and I can have those servers. When I look at those servers, I can have them on premises where I host a software to other people. I can have networks. I can have storage. Remember, we talked about primary storage and secondary storage, all my applications and all my services. What is the key here in cloud computing? Is access over the internet. It basically, that cloud computing allows then all those customers to acquire resources of any time. And if I don't want to use it, I delete it. So that's what I have with my cloud computing. And the key here, it's on-demand self-service. I can scale up. So Sandro, as we get more customers, I can get more computing power. Or you know what, Sandro, maybe we were really popular during the fall, but summer is slow. There are not a lot of tourists. We can scale down. I can decide how much computing. It's almost in a way you think about electricity, you know, that if you leave for a couple of months, I can turn my air off, so I'll have less bills, right? So I can think about that cloud computing and those characteristics. So and this is what this looks like. If I look at this, they call this a server farm, but basically they're data centers throughout the world. So Ryan, when I think about it, when Amazon, if their headquarters are in Seattle, they can have these server centers everywhere in the world. You don't even, sometimes you can even, if we're a company, you can even ask. If we're the government, you can say, hey, I only want it in the United States, Ryan, and I only want it near me in Virginia. Or you could say, you know what, I have some subsidiaries in Europe, so I want to have basically the data center. I want to use your European division or your Latin American division or your Miami. The problem is sometimes I don't even know where it is and I don't care. But in this case, you can think about it. If I were doing high frequency trading, and Luke, what's your major?
Majoring in finance.
Finance. You know what high frequency trading is, Luke?
No, I don't.
Okay. Blink your eyes one time. You blinked them? Everybody blink your eyes one time, kind of intentionally. High frequency trade is when I blink my eyes, possibly thousands of trades went through. That's high frequency trading. Basically, I get into a trade, and after I blink my eyes, I get out of the trade. That's high frequency trading. So in this case, in high frequency traders, if they're trading the NASDAQ, it's important to have their server be very close to the NASDAQ because they don't want to have that time lag. When I'm doing Zoom and then I stream live to YouTube, Luke, is there a time lapse of what I see in YouTube?
Yes.
Yes, there's maybe a 30-second. For high frequency trading, if we then set up a Zoom with live streaming to YouTube and they were following us, let's say we got an AI algorithm that was really good in predicting what they should buy and sell quickly, right? And I would be buying and selling quickly. Having people watch me on YouTube would be too slow because I would be in and out of the trade already. So this is that server farms that I can do it. And each of these then are computers along with that server farm. And you can see what they're basically doing is this could be one Google server farm going through in this cloud. All this cloud means is connecting to the internet. So these are, and then they have what they call virtualization, meaning I can take my hardware and virtually have other computers within each of those computers. So if I look at it, where I was doing before, I can have different types of clouds based on my security needs. So what I have here, if you look at this, Connor, I have what they call a Google public cloud. I could have an Amazon public cloud. And all this means is, let's say in Google, we had Gmail accounts. They could be using the public cloud. It does not mean, Connor, that it's going to be insecure, that it won't be password protected. But what it does mean that my account and your account, Connor, could reside on the same computer. We don't even know where they reside, right, Connor? We don't know where they reside, but it could be, and it's good enough for us. But if I were the NSA, or the CIA, I would say, I don't even want to share my information on the same computer with someone else. They would then be able to request from Amazon or from Google or Microsoft, give me what they call a private cloud. Only our data will be on the computers that you assign to us. So you understand that's the public versus the private cloud, but the public cloud also has passwords. The hybrid cloud would be just in the way both. It's just like this class could be hybrid. Sometimes we meet in person, like on the exams. Other times we meet in the cloud. So this is hybrid, that sometimes they say some of our information we want to have privately and some we don't. And if you look at this, it's the same idea of the cloud services that you need. Is I can decide, depending on what I want, is sometimes I can have, I want then, and you can look at this example right here, I can have then on-premise software. That means on my computer or in my organization, the software will reside here. Infrastructure as a service means I want all the hardware to be done in the cloud, meaning I have access to it, but I don't want to take care of the infrastructure. I don't want to take care of those computer labs. So what we could do is go to other computers having all the software and the platform. So we have something called infrastructure as a service. platform as a service like the operating system, and software as a service. Anytime you see the words as a service, that means through the internet, cloud computing. So put that in your notes. As a service means cloud computing, means get it over the internet. And you can see here, the infrastructure is the hardware. And you can see that there are benefits where I allow, instead of me worrying about the IT staff in the School of Business to take care of the computers and to keep it secure, I give it to Amazon, or I give it to Google, or I give it to Microsoft. I can have scalability because what the cloud vendors do is they share. They're going to govern the access. They're going to make for us automatic backups. They're going to take care of disaster recoveries, right? And they are going to do sustainability. So what I can look at, let me just take this out. If I can look back here to my what's due section, and I look at, for instance, Amazon, and I open it in a new tab, which I want you to read for Wednesday, as you can look at exactly what we were talking about as well. That's why in this case, what I want to do, Kristen, in this case, is I want you to go to those websites. One is AWS, Amazon Web Service, on what is cloud computing. And look what you see then, Kristen. Cloud computing is on demand, meaning you as a user of their service, whenever you want it, you decide. Of IT resources over the internet and pay as you go. Instead of buying, owning, or maintaining those physical data centers, just like we had in the lab, right? You can access them to get as much computing power as you want, as much storage as you want. You remember, Kristen, when I was asking you, when we're going through hardware, and I was asking you how much RAM do you have, how much primary storage, how much secondary? You remember that, Kristen? Instead, you can say, hey, we need, for this application, we need 128 gig. And you say to me, Dr. Rush, I don't have 16 gig. So then what we can do is, if our applications need 128, we can order it from, rent it out over the internet. And we can get the storages, we can get the database, and it as needed. So you can see here what they're talking about and what are the benefits of cloud computing then, Kristen. That I can be agile. That means, what does it mean, agility? That we can quickly, let's say we're in business together. Kristen, what is your project?
My project is for like wealth management, kind of for like startups.
Okay, so you're going to be giving advice to wealth management. And let's say all of a sudden, basically, we have some wealth managers from Charles Schwab that come to us and they want to get our help. So all of a sudden you say, Dr. Rush, we don't have enough computing power. And I said, don't worry about it. We can quickly spin up, or we can quickly request from Amazon to get enough resources, to get enough computers, that we can even get programmers from all over the world and we'll give them access. We don't have to buy them. We can get enough computing storage about it. That's called agility. If all of a sudden we got a customer, Chris, and I said, you know what? Oh my goodness, we have to go to Apple and you got to order some computers, and maybe we'll have to go to Dell and order some computers. They tell me it's not going to be ready for 2 weeks. We don't have to bother. And guess what? After we finish the Charles Schwab account, we can stop paying. Elasticity means what? Elasticity means what? That I can scale up. All of a sudden, we're really popular, Kristen. We got another 3 since we got Charles Schwab. They said, start off with our San Francisco office and now start with our Miami office and deal with the wealth managers. So we can get more so we can be elastic. And guess what? Elastic is almost when I think about, sometimes you have those elastic pants. When you get fatter, right? It spreads. When I get skinnier, it goes back down. Cost savings. Why is it going to be cheaper? I don't have to buy all that hardware. And basically, it allows me to trade fixed expenses. Those of you can do, as my variable expenses are much lower than what you'd have to pay if I did it myself. I can deploy it quickly. And what's important here is this is what you need to know. Remember, we talked about infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Infrastructure is what, Kristen? Hardware. Platform is like the operating system, and software, you know what software is. And I can use those types of computing, and you can see in each of these cases, they're giving me examples of who uses it. What are cloud services? What are cloud managed services? Basically, cloud managed services is it's fully, I get somebody to take care of it. I don't worry about, Luke, having that IT staff to say 3 of the computers didn't work. Remember that? And all of a sudden I have to have my students, you want to take an exam, I want to give an exam. We don't want to bother with fixing computers. Fixing computers are not my job. So what we can do is manage services, they take care of all of that. And then you can see examples of their cloud services. And notice when we're dealing with artificial intelligence and machine learning, instead of producing that on our own, we can use their services, and they'll help us with AI as well. And anybody hear about having those data centers? Now we're going to have, for artificial intelligence, we have those centers as well, and they require a lot of electricity, right? That you know. And then if I go back, guess what? I can go back and I can look at the same thing for Microsoft Azure, and I can open it up in a new tab. And if I look at Microsoft, we all heard of it, is the same thing. They just called their service Azure or Azure. You see that? And here's a beginning defined. Guess what? They all do you see that, Ryan? They all kind of do the same services. They kind of look at each other. And each one tries to better the other one. And basically, look at this, Ryan. Cloud computing is the delivery of computing services. This looks like exactly what we went over for the first exam, right? Servers, which are computers that host different software package. Storage, you know what it is, like primary storage, secondary storage, right? You know that databases, remember we talked about database, like the student database. So if we had all this, all our financials at the university, instead of storing them on premise at the university, they would store it at Amazon. Software, analytics to analyze the data, and intelligence, AI. Over the internet means the cloud. When you hear the cloud, all that means, Ryan, is having a browser to go over the internet. What is the disadvantage of that? When we heard about Amazon being down, is when that server is down or you don't have internet access, Ryan, you can't do your work. So it's going to offer the positive. It's going to be faster, it's going to be flexible, and economies of scale. Since they have so many millions of people using it, it's going to be, for economies of scale, for us, it's going to be less. And this is a revenue producer, profit producer for these companies. And you only pay for the services you use. It's just like electricity, right? You only pay, once it's the summer, you need to move up that dial to, you have to lower the temperature so I won't sweat. And it helps you lower your operating costs. So for the university, it's an advantage to have a lot of their services. CaneLink. Have you ever used CaneLink, Ryan?
Yeah.
Yeah. CaneLink is what? You think they're doing it on premise or they're doing cloud? How do you get to K9?
You like look it up online.
Right, online, right? So it's a cloud service. And it runs then your infrastructure more efficiently. And the types of clouds they're going to do basically is understanding. Look at this. IaaS stands for what's, Sandro? Infrastructure as a service. P stands for platform as a service. S stands for software as a service. And guess what? What are the benefits? It's going to be IT costs will be optimized, the speed, the global scale, productivity, performance, reliability, security, and the different models, the public cloud, the private cloud. This is what they're offering. Is Amazon offering the same thing? Yes. You think, Sandro, Google's offering something similar? Yes. Do you think Oracle is offering something similar? Yes. Is IBM offering something service? Yes. Probably the three biggest is probably AWS first, then Microsoft, and then now Google. Surprising you wouldn't think that Google would be number one since they have all that YouTube. Where do you think all that YouTube resides? That's a cloud service, right? How many videos does YouTube, right, store, right? So they would need then those types of services, right? The same type of thing. And serverless computing. And then we can have Microsoft in the cloud computing. So you can see here that this is the same thing. And then they have the developer frequently asked questions. What is the cloud? What is multi-cloud? What skills? How much does it cost? And then you can see here is the benefits, the type, the next step, the resources, right? Key takeaways. So they have all of these have kind of the same idea when you think of it. So it doesn't matter which one you use, right? This is Google Cloud. You see this, Sandro? Same idea. Understanding the types of cloud computing on demand, right? Storage infrastructure as a services. It eliminates the need for individual businesses to self-manage physical resources themselves and only pay for what they use. You got it? So they're only going to do it. What are the benefits? What they don't talk about are what? What are the risks? Sandra, why do you think they're not talking about the risks? AWS or Google or Microsoft.
Because it would discourage customers.
Yes, it's an advertisement, right? I want to look my best. You think, even when they say, what are your weaknesses in a job interview, you always make something up that doesn't sound so bad. You don't say, hey, I'm a lazy bum and and I don't like to work too much. You say, oh, maybe I work too much. That's my problem. You know what I mean? You make up. So it's the same thing with this advertising here. That they're doing the same thing that they're doing. So what I would want you to do is research what are the disadvantages. One of the disadvantages is like last week, Sandro, right? That all of a sudden it's down. Now how am I going to do my work? So maybe what you want to do, Kristen, is to have like a hybrid approach and maybe have a backup that my number one is not to depend on just one vendor. Maybe I'll do Google and Amazon for a reason. Number two, even if I do Amazon, say, you know what? I want my data to be in several places. You have to think about that because guess what? If their server's in Jamaica, we're going to be in trouble, right? Let alone they're not going to have internet. Anybody see that hurricane coming to those poor people in Jamaica? It's frightening. That Cat 5 is coming straight to them. They're lucky. They're not going to have internet. They're not going to have self-service. They may not have a roof over their heads, let alone doing it. That whole country can be, all their infrastructure demolished. So you want to have it a number of different places. A hurricane comes, an earthquake comes, who knows what, a terrorist, I don't know. But you want to have backup. So this is what I want you to think about is not only is it's kind of like a given that, and when we get to AI, now they're going to do all these. Anybody hear about that? All those AI data centers they're coming out with, they're taking out big portions of land in Texas and Louisiana, other basically data centers, because what? They need, instead of the traditional cloud computing centers that use what? CPUs, the AIs use what they call GPUs, the graphic processing units or the neural processing units. And they need even much more electricity, and they have to think about ways to cool these centers and all. So there are disadvantages too of all those resources that they're using. Okay, so Kristen, did that help kind of give that overview of why it's important? So let me just share one more thing. So if we can see here, if I go to the J audit and I go to assignment groups for your session, then you see how group 0 is in intelligent.org. What I'd like you to do for each of your groups then, have your current URL here, make sure you publish it. And for this next stage is, you don't have to, I don't want you to upgrade to the free domain. I want you to use what Wix gives you. So Wix will be in the title. So each of your groups will have it right there. So easily we can see what you've done the first round. Okay, so we have each of you then for our 10 groups, we'll have it right here on the bottom for Wednesday. Okay, that makes sense? Any questions, comments? Okay, anything that I need to do? Okay, so Lily, do you want to, any comments for you about this is your group, right? Your student data. Anything about your projects you want to give them? Any notes, words of wisdom for Wednesday?
I mean, I've gotten a couple of questions if social media, like setting up the social media, is needed for like this Wednesday submission. And
what did we state there? I think at least they should make an assignment of
no, like make the accounts and link them to the website. But we suggest that they kind of post like a couple of posts every week and kind of like build on it instead of just like dumping
creating
all kinds
it
of
all
like
at once.
different types of posts. Yeah.
And also, I think what's important is they assign one or two people and just decide which sites they want, and probably now at least they can they can create those sites. You know, that I'm going to use LinkedIn, or I'm going to use Instagram, or whatever ones they want, so they can, and they make those assignments, and then afterwards, yeah, they'll be creating it. What other things? What other questions?
And that you're setting up the home page on Wix.
Right.
And to create your, like, put your link to your website.
Put your what?
On your put your link to your website on your group folder.
Yeah, put your link
so
to
we
your
can
website.
access it.
Perfect. Yes, that's what we'll be doing. So on Wednesday, in the very beginning, we'll have everybody just show it. You know, be like show and tell, quickly show and tell. But you know that at least it's working that first round. And then you'll be creating it, and then you should be also you want to create that team as well of who you have on team. Yeah. Have like the first
and to split up your time wisely, because only one person can edit the site at a time.
Yeah. So you can give everybody times to do it. Or you can work in a Zoom and, create in a group fashion too, where one person's doing it and then let the other people go through. We're not going to micromanage how you're doing it, but everyone
No.
needs to have a role there. Those people, if you have one person do everything, that one person will get credit and the other people will not. So that's going to be important as well. And you'll be documenting what you did for the work as well. And just saying I inspired the group is not good enough, right? It's good always to have a cheerleader on the side, but the cheerleader needs also to do some work as well. Anything else, Lily? And once you do, it's like the first pass, then we can give you feedback. Once you do the first pass, we can say, hey, this is this you need to improve. And then you can, and give each other feedback as well in your group. And then you can look at
Right.
other groups, what they're doing as well. That's the beauty of the audit area, that we can see what everyone else is doing. Okay, great. So you want to do, Lily, you want to be so kind?
I'll do
and
attendance.
And I'll stay with anybody as long as they need. And looking forward to see your work on Wednesday. Your first draft, and then we'll continue doing it. Okay, so we have everything done. And if you need to stay with me, otherwise you're welcome to, you put in that note there, okay?